I've been really wanting to do this because of all the things I've sat through today. We're the only group that are actually considering conservation and climate activism a use case for NFTs. And so we're kind of switching the title around, but the intent is the same. All of us, I think, on the stage here, all four of us, even though we're quite different, believe in the following things. We believe that we're very passionate about conservation and climate activism. We all have a love of telling stories through NFT, and we have this like untractable belief that in Web3, communities will end up to be some new kind of marketplace. But outside of those similarities, I think we approach this thing a little bit different. And I think if you look at what's been happening at the intersection of the edges of the NFT ecosystem and the mass market, there's been kind of a social and technical change that's happening. So I think it's really clear to think that you can look at this thing as a chain, like of a continuum. So for example, if you take is that too loud? If you actually take the technical capabilities of NFTs and you think about the aspects of education around conservation, and if you think about philanthropy, and if you think about adaptive and impact economies, these things go together in some very interesting ways. So for example, last year at this time, I was on the stage and I was talking about a project that we had done between myself, CryptoKitties and Axiom, Bill Tai, Gigi Bresson, and Richard Branson, where we launched a thing called Hanu the CryptoKitty. Some of you may remember it was basically just a very little cat that was half turtle that we brought out through the CryptoKitties platform, and then we decided to skirt the crypto community and we went right to the mass market. And we had a huge amount of interest and acceptance from people like National Geographic and Mongo Bay, and then we raised a bunch of money and we flooded the money back into that. We were obviously on the very kind of simplistic level where we used NFTs to hold the story, but we didn't use any of the coordinating capabilities of the blockchain. And I think this is a good kickoff point because these three entrepreneurs, which is one of my goals, is to introduce them and their projects to this community, take this from that point and jump off and take it all on their own. So I think I'd like to start, since most of us don't know them, with Nish, and why don't you kind of like do like an introduction of yourself and talk a little bit about how you would want others to think about your project in a couple of minutes, and then we'll go down the line.
Hi everyone, I'm Nich, and I'm a co-founder of Avars. And basically, the product, what we're trying to do is find creative ways to tell stories about on-the-ground conservation work through non-fungible tokens. So we're tokenizing endangered species in the wild, and then we're creating a one-to-one relationship with the digital collectible and the real animal that these NGOs are working to protect in real life. So as a token owner, you can see what's the work that's being done, and yeah, so it's just a creative medium to tell these stories.
Hi, I'm Denham Preen from Wildcards, and we're working on a platform that connects endangered animal conservations to donators through a fun and engaging platform, and it creates a recurring revenue stream for these conservations, and it's not a once-off payment. It's kind of interactive. There's gamified features like leaderboards and social profiles, and we really try to make an impact in the crypto conservation community.
Hi, I'm Olive. I'm a visual artist, designer, and the founder of Decadent. Decadent is a brand that I created under. That's what it really is. Why am I here, you ask? I'm creating a series of collectibles called the Unbearables that meant to represent the species that are suffering in the result of the climate change. They're called Unbearables, bears in the middle, so it's going to be koalas and polar bears. Those species are actually great examples of how climate change that our president denies affect those species. So that's what I'm really passionate about, and decided to do collectibles about it. And NFTs are great. I mean,
I think that's great. I think the thing that I'd like to ask is that I agree with you, and maybe a lot of people in the audience understand the passion that's coming from your dedication to this, but consumers and the mass market like to think of things in categories, right? So we can share our passions and we can share all the things we're doing on the technical end, but what are you? Because we're going to have to bridge outside of this room in order to be successful. Should people think of you as a game? Should they think of you as collectibles? People need to have a label, even if it's one that you feel you're too big for. What do you think, Denham?
It's a great question. And I think what differentiates us from a traditional game is we're more of a donation platform that has gamified features. So one of the challenges with donations is that it's pretty unrewarding. You receive an email, like a thank you email, and then it's done. You feel a little bit good, and then it's over. So instead of trying to fight with this, we thought, why not make it more entertaining? Why not make it more exciting? So with our platform, we try to bring in these features, and the beauty of the blockchain is that you've got complete transparency and verifiability that these people are actually making these donations. And so through our crypto collectibles, we have a bit more of a fun and engaging platform.
Okay, so Olive, when you look at yours, how would you describe it to the man on the street?
That is interesting. There are collectible items for now. They're going to be digital. With blockchain technology, they're real. And they become more real. You can track transactions, donations, everything, which is great. And I'm also planning to make them physical, so the majority of consumers can understand what it really is. Hey, there's physical and there's digital collectibles. I mean, most of the process is gonna go to a good cause, obviously. Yeah, I want to bridge that gap. I feel like collectibles has to be both digital and physical. I mean, we actually going for the mass audience, right? I mean, NFTs is really, really small space, and people who buy NFTs, actually 95% work in this space. So.
That's a good question, and Nisha, I'm going to continue with it with you, but I'm going to add another piece to it, right? Because yes, I agree, and especially when we start to talk about your models, we need to go to the broad market. You know, we actually need to hit markets as big as we hit with Hanu, which was like 49 million people read about it. So how do you get there, right? So do you believe, and I'll take a cue from our last speaker, because I fundamentally don't believe that crossing the chasm is the way that you do it anymore. I think you can't just go deep. I think you have to go broad from the very beginning and find ways to connect with them. So when you think about how you're going to build a market and what it is you're selling, what do you think about?
So I definitely see Last of Us being known as a brand, and which is why we're taking the time to create stories and characters that people just fall in love with. If you look at a brand like Lion King, who over the course of its lifetime, Lion King has earned $9 billion in revenue, right? But if we look at the biggest lion conservation funds, they only raised a few $100,000 a year. So our one-liner vision is to break the barriers between entertainment and impact. And I think NFTs is the bridge for that. And the blockchain is used just as a vehicle for donation transparency. When you buy the token, you can see exactly what, how much money is going towards the conservation organization. And we want them to be very involved in the platform in terms of content creation around what is happening with the money, and tell their stories and give voices to them on the platform, right? And ultimately, I think that's the kind of stories that people want to hear about and can fall in love with.
Yeah, that's great. I have like 10 other great questions, but I'm going to start with the biggest one that I don't know the answer to, and I don't know how you think about it, but I think it's very important for the audience, and that's that there's a fundamental difference between active philanthropy, being involved with stuff, and actually having an impact business model where you're not a charity, but you're actually a company that makes business, and it's dedicated in its model to do this. And so what you're actually doing, from my understanding, and you can correct me, is you're actually programming into the NFT the social good. You're actually programming in the smart contract itself, this idea of crypto conservation, for lack of a better term. What does that mean, and why do you think that that's going to work?
I think we are actually proudly for profit in the sense that we don't believe we're taking it away from the traditional system. In fact, we're adding into it. And when you take an example of 31% of donators donate across borders. Now, to make a cross-border payment, you're going to pay about 4% or so just to make that transaction, and that's going into some bank. Now, with crypto, it's completely seamless. So that 4% in a market that's $12 billion in wildlife conservation is a massive number. So we're proudly for profit in the sense that if it has a greater impact than on the total community, then that's fantastic.
I mean, it's a great business model, but I believe causes like that should be a non-profit. Most of the organizations that aim to help, whose goal is actually help the environment, those causes are registered as non-profit. I don't think it really matters what you encode in a smart contract. I think the structure of organization should be a very different one when you think about that.
Niche.
That's my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to give users something that they want as opposed to ask for a donation. So that's the narrative that I want that I want to have when building this project. And then I want to build a product that people want, and it just happens to, make money for charities as well. So I think it's much more sustainable than just, essentially becoming another NGO that needs donations to survive.
So it's really, we've all built companies and products before, and it's really easy to dream them up, and there's always this huge leap of reality from what you want to do and the things that come out, right? And that's fine. That's the process of being an entrepreneur in a software space. But I'm curious if you can just for like a minute or two kind of draw a picture of what it's like to be a user of this thing that you're building, right? So if they get a token or they get one of your objects, can they go and sell it on OpenSea? Could you collaborate with artists and then have artists be part of this as well? Just to kind of get a sense of this world that you're envisioning, of where what you make and do not only has social good, but how it impacts the user themselves.
Yeah, so our immediate product right now is just the digital collectibles that tells these stories from conservation work, but we want to build an ecosystem of activities that people can actually participate in, either in the gaming world or in the real world, to make an impact towards conservation. So what our tokens actually are composable tokens. So what that means is our NFTs can hold other digital assets as well, and we're experimenting with that model to give rewards, to incentivize people to be active participants in the system, whether that's through content creation or through like buying the tokens or through the activities that NGOs want people to be more involved in. So that could be tweeting about like the work that's going on in Thailand, or raising awareness about the ivory trade, or anything like that.
No, I think that's good. Let's go down the line on this one because I think it's important.
Sure. So to give you an idea of what Wildcards actually is and how it works, so we've partnered with 2, at this point, conservation organizations, and they have a set of animals within the locations that they look after. And so we've tokenized these endangered animals into an NFT that's represented on the Ethereum blockchain. And we use this interesting economic model, which is a mix between a subscription service and a continuous auction. And through trading these crypto collectibles that represent a real animal, a one-to-one real animal, there's a continuous revenue stream that gets funneled towards conservation, to our conservation organization partners. And that's our primary goal, to raise funds for these conservation organizations.
All right, it's really hard to hear questions. I remember your question was about collaborations and creators. I think as a creator, you always have to ask yourself what your art, designs, company, brand is about. What do you stand for? What's your message? What's your mission? And for me, it's always been very clear that whatever I do has to serve a purpose, actually do good. It's a second nature to me. Whatever I'm doing, I mean, this series is going to be about the climate change and the suffering creatures, and that's how I try to connect with the audience. I don't know, what's going to be next, but I felt like it was important for me to get it across. Those collaborations with nonprofits and artists been done for a very, very long time. It's nothing new, and I think that's the way it should be. I mean, if a nonprofit can attract attention that way, that's amazing, and artists are all very supportive usually. So it's a great way.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very true statement, and I also play around in the digital art world, and all the artists that I've been speaking with have been very open to the idea of doing things. So I have one more question, but I have one question first here from Chris Bell. He says, the initial purchase of the NFT is a donation, but does the secondary market help the movement still in some way? Is there a reason to purchase the NFT at that point? So basically the question is, there's an origin, but does it matter where you buy it as it relates to the model that you're conceptualizing?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The thing that we're building in-house, it's like for the primary market and then also the marketplace that we're building in-house, the donation is programmed into that mechanic. So when you're buying the token, it automatically goes towards conservation, and then when you're trading, it also goes towards conservation. I think for secondary marketplaces like OpenSea, we would have to work with them to build customized mechanics about how the funds are channeled, because right now we as Last of Ours can take a portion of the trading fees, but is there a way for us to customize that mechanic so that it's split to our wallet and then also the wallet of the NGO?
So I'm going to close it there because I have one more question before we run out of time, and I wanted each of you there. So Earth Day 2020 is April 26th, I think, right? So, which is Earth Day, right? So what should the people in the audience and people who are tweeting about this, will they have access to something that you're making? How would you like to tell them to contact you? Do you think that you'll be in the market in some way, even in an early way, so people can participate in this vision that you've been sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually live on the mainnet. We are just a platform. At the end of the day, the conservation happens when you interact with the platform. But you can visit wildcards.world and become the guardian of an endangered animal.
Yeah, so we're on testnet right now and working through audits, but we are hoping to launch either on Earth Day or somewhere around Earth Day. We have a website, lastofours.com. We're working through a completely refurbished UI right now, so by next week you should be able to see what it might look like to own a token and to purchase a token.
Well, Earth Day should be every day, not just April 21st, first of all. And to answer the question, launching my collectibles in partnership with amazing entrepreneurs, amazing platform, Nifty Getaways, and it's going to be media and March. Perfect. And it's open to everyone. Everyone can make a purchase using their credit card. So it's amazing innovation, and guys do an incredible job. It's an obvious choice.
I have just one question, then we need to end. All of you have some fans. They want to know when your next collection is available.
No. I wanted to make a joke. Nothing is available, but it's an art world joke. I'm not gonna make it. Basically, I make an announcement. I want to hype it up. It's gonna be great, so you're gonna hear about it, and hopefully you'll make the right choice. And yeah, get my collectibles, and pandas and polar bears will be safe.
Thank you so much. As we're walking off, I just want to say that a lot of you guys know me as a blogger. I think I'm going to write a post that'll do a summary of what we did here and all the people's contact information so that you can follow through from there. Thank you very much.